who vote, because those are the votes. Cancel out our votes. And that's what
it is. You're right. It is about disenfranchisement.
But that's what it is.
It's disenfranchising the legal voters.
Exactly. Who do you think is going to not be showing the ID? If you don't have to show ID, who are the people that are going to show up with that ID to vote? People who don't have a right to vote.
Exactly.
We're talking about, okay, we think, this can't be that big of a problem, voter right fraud. Ha, 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 ha. No way. All right. We're printing up 31 million cards for illegal aliens, okay? Yeah. So if there are 31 million illegal aliens in this country, do you really think that none of them are interested in voting? Or do we think that probably, at least 15%, maybe 25%, maybe 30% of those people are in fact voting?
At least once.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
At least once.
All right, so we're at 5 to 9 million right there.
Yeah.
And if there were...
there was a thing in the press today...
so much farther gone than people realize. This country, I don't mean, go ahead. I'm going to get too gloomy about this. But this country is so far gone that what it is going to take to save it, we're not going to find it in a ballot box. Just don't bring a ballot to a gunfight. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, there you go. We had article in the paper today that there were 860-something people in New York that were registered to vote that supposedly
800
were alive when Abe Lincoln was president.
They were alive. These people were alive back when America was America.
Yeah, but these people are supposed to be 160-something years old. There was a thing that we talked about on last night's show. A Republican candidate in Illinois. I don't know whether it was Chicago or elsewhere, but a Republican candidate went into the polls to vote. And he pressed the button, and it came up for his opponent.
Yeah, I saw that on my site today.
He voted for some other Republicans, and each time it came up for the Democrat. So the machines are hardwired to vote for Democrats.
Yeah,
so what we saw in 2012 has just been rolled out and probably exponentially more crooked than it was in 2012.
Do we, the people, really have any way to verify the veracity of these results? Seriously, back in the old... Exactly.
No.
In the old day, there were boxes of paper where, all the ballots were.
Yeah.
Where, at least in theory, you could always recount these ballots. Well, how do you count? Does anybody even know how these electronic systems supposedly work and how they can be counted and checked?
It has been... It started in 2012. The people that make the electronic voting machines actually contracted with a firm in Spain, another socialist country. These people will get the votes electronically, and they will do the tallying of the votes and send them back to us. So we're now outsourcing the integrity of our national voting system to a company in a socialist country. So
sounds like a plan to me, right?
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly.
What could possibly go wrong? Pat, can you stay over? I've got one more break. I'd love to have you come back.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Folks, stick with us. We'll be right back.
The most diversified radio station on the dial, AM 1050 KCAA.
Tom O'Halloran has a not-so-common core spelling lesson for the Obama administration. Ready? There is no K in America.
There's kids that can't pray in school, $100 tanks of gas. I can tell you right now, this country ain't supposed to be like that. No, that ain't my America. That ain't this country's roots. You wanna slam all on the Sam, but I ain't letting you. Yeah, I'm mad as hell, and you know I still bleed red, white, and blue. They ain't us, and that ain't my America. Oh no, that ain't my America. No, 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 no. That ain't my America.
And welcome back. This is the Wednesday night edition of Patriot Radio with Tom O'Halloran. on air is my good friend, Patriot brother, Pat Dollard. Pat, are you still with me?
I'm here.
All right. And listen, we talked about it a little bit before you came on air. The Michael Brown autopsy came out, the recent release of the grand jury decision. You got any thoughts on this whole mess?
Yeah. First of all, one little sidebar on that topic. I just got a tip on this today. I was on the road most of the day, so I haven't had a chance to get the details yet. But it's my understanding. So I'm throwing this out there, so I'm encouraging all of you to sort of go hit Google, go check what you can find in the news reports about this if you don't know this already. But apparently what the black members of the grand jury are saying, they will not say in public. But what they're saying, and I don't know the details of it, but what the black people that are on this grand jury are saying so totally are against Michael Brown and in favor of this cop that it's kind of mind-blowing. So if you haven't poured through any of the news stories or stuff on this autopsy report and these grand jury leaks, I encourage you. Apparently the hot thing to find out is what the blacks in the grand jury are saying. So that's kind of like the fun thing to sort of Google and figure out tonight, when the show's over. But in any event, look, I've never seen anything just so evil. Since I was a kid, go on in this country, at the level of elected officials from the President of the United States to the Attorney General, to supposed reverends, public figures like Al Sharpton and all that. I'm not talking about like the usual stuff on this, but let's get to the dark, ugly truth at the center of this, which is that a large segment of the black community, and probably the majority of it, it would appear. And all the way up to, again, Eric Holder and Barack Obama, they are willing to kill this white cop, innocent or not. They want this guy dead, even without a trial. They want at this point, there are people who want him dead, even if he is innocent, because they want to preserve the narrative. Just that response when the mob was screaming and yelling about this in the first place and wanted to just lynch this guy. That's what's going on. The black community is demanding a lynching of a man who, as all apparent evidence so far indicates, is completely innocent. And even absent that, he certainly hasn't been tried yet. Yet the black community has wanted this guy literally lynched, regardless of whether or not he's guilty. And it's one thing at the mob level, but when you get to the level of the leadership element of the black community, whether it's the Sharptons and again the elected officials, major sports figures, again the wealthy and the leadership of the black community supporting this kind of nonsense, and just seeing. I've just never seen anything like this in my life, where you have seen such a large percentage of the population demanding the murder of an innocent man to satisfy a narrative. I've never seen anything like this.
We got close with Trayvon Martin with the with Zimmerman.
But
They weren't looking for the head, but they did want Zimmerman arrested. It wasn't a matter of find out if he did anything wrong and then arrest him. Arrest him and then we'll find out what he did.
Yeah,
it's ass backwards.
They want this guy that you can tell now. These hosts on MSNBC and everywhere else, they don't even care if he's innocent. The narrative must be preserved. The white man is a bad person. He's still oppressing the black people. They need to have this in order for them to sell their crap that they sell to their constituency, to sell their myths. They need this guy. It gives them power. You've seen what Eric Holder's been able to do. He can go in there and take over a whole police department if they can prove that it's run by these bad white people. They need this narrative preserved in order for them to maintain and increase their power. That's what this is about. They don't care about justice.
Right, and you said it was from from Eric Holder on down, or it was all the way up to the leadership that this was the case. I don't think it was all the way up to the leadership. I think a lot of this came from the leadership on down.
Well, there you go.
It was Al Sharpton, it was Jesse Jackson, it was Eric Holder, it was the governor, all fanning the flames and revving these people up.
No voice of reason, was there? None.
No. I mean, when was the last time a police officer of any color shoots a white man and the white residents turn around and start looting all the stores?
Right, exactly, and precisely. And even if they did, I think most white leadership would be telling them to stop. You know what I mean? Instead of saying, "Oh, you must excuse these people and understand." You know, and a lot of that was also there were a lot of leftist infiltrators who went in, agitators who went in there. These sort of Linda Fithian types who went into Ferguson.
Well, Holder sent some from the
his own right
from the Department of Justice.
That you can look at them as agitators who did it too.
That's exactly what they were.
Yeah.
They're agitators, the same crew that went down to Florida for Trayvon, to support Trayvon Martin.
Yeah.
Since when does this Department of Justice have flame fanners? When have we ever sent agitators to stir up protests?
But it shows you again, you know, if the left is so invested in this. In other words, if you've got these white leftists, like these black bloc types, these black bloc anarchist types, these Linda Fithian types who are going down there to stir this up, they're obviously getting something out of it. So again, what they're getting out of it is the white cop, white male power. It's being disempowered. It's being disenfranchised. You can put more controls on the police nationally. And again, they need that narrative to be kept alive so they can continue to write more laws and restrictions against whites and against cops, and like that.
Exactly. And now they're in the process of rewriting the requirements to become a police officer in Ferguson. They're lowering the standards. If you had some criminal offenses, now we're going to let that happen because they are under an order to get more blacks on the police department.
That's
we're going to lower the standard.
Exactly.
Now, if you've done some B&E, but you haven't done a homicide,
no murders, right?
Yeah,
you become a cop.
You've done some B&E. Okay,
Sodomy.
You had a meth lab. Okay, you got a stable of hoes.
Meth, sodomy, and the lash.
But you haven't killed anybody. Well, you can be a cop.
There you go.
It's absolutely an insult to the black community works, the black community that goes to school, the black community that goes to church. To lower the standards to be a police officer if you're black is to say that blacks can't live up to the standard that everybody else does, and that is an absolute racist attitude.
No, it's ridiculous. All the slaves that I own, they can all read and write. I mean, I'm kidding.
There you go.
There you go. Anyway, so no, but what I'd like to figure out seriously is just specifically what is the agenda out of, whether again keeping this particular narrative alive. What was the other thing that we were sort of talking about? The whole white privilege thing. Okay, these things are not happening for no reason, no accident. The fact that white privilege is now this big topic,
right.
The left is obviously getting something out of that. There's an end game. And I'd like to know specifically. I mean, we kind of know, again, we know in general, but, again, it's about sort of keeping the narrative alive. But the left is putting so much energy into this notion of white privilege, white people bad, black people oppressed. There's something specific they're trying to
It's the same thing. It's the same thing it's the same thing we're talking about all night long. Everything Obama has done since he's come into office is to divide us up, rich and poor, black and white. It's to stir up the blacks. You've got to vote Democrat. Otherwise, what was it? I think it was a DNC ad. A DNC ad that basically said, if you don't vote, it had a bunch of black people in the picture and said, if you don't vote for Democrats, prepare to be hanged.
Yeah,
it's to stir them up. If you don't come out and vote for Democrats, the Republicans will be back to hanging us.
Yeah. Well, look, if the country really is a functional civil war, let's just give the left what they want. If the left, if their whole thing is that we're all at odds and we're bad and black people should hate, let's just be the civil war that the left wants. If that's what they want, if the left wants us all divided, why don't we just just give it to them? You know what I mean? Let's just have at it. Let's just go. If this is I don't know. I don't really think this is a country anymore. I think this is nothing but a civil war in motion. This is a functioning war of tribes where everybody's too afraid to shoot the first shot. That's what it seems like.
Well, I'll tell you what. Once the first shot is thrown, we're going to see some blood on the streets because this has gone way beyond just civil unrest.
Yeah, I mean, look, what people forget that what this country is an experiment. Maybe it doesn't work. You know what I mean? This is it's not normal. It's not natural where all these different types of people have to sort of get together and get along. That's a very uniquely American thing. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not casting a judgment on it. By that time, I'm not casting a judgment on it. But my point is, let's not forget, it's an experiment. and we still don't know the results of it yet. You know, they couldn't hold it together